I would get a reading because it shows you a way to love yourself more, a way to make decisions that might be counterintuitive to how you're currently doing it. And when you are able to follow your strategy and your authority, it means that your decisions, you become more confident in them, and it helps to put you in a path is meant for you that makes more sense.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Flip Your Mindset. I am your host, Stacey Uhrig, and today's guest is Jackie Roby. So excited to have her back. This is the second time Jackie's been on the podcast. She was on the podcast a little bit ago. You can find the link to that episode in the show notes. And in that episode, she was sharing with us a true story of her personal challenge with an experience that happened early on in life and how it impacted her into adulthood. But what was so interesting about that episode is one of the things that she used to help her get to the other end of that particular journey was human design. And what I love about interviewing all of my guests is that each one of them takes a different, unique approach to how they get through their challenge. And I'm always so curious. I'm always so interested as a trauma recovery coach. You know, I know what I do, and I'm constantly learning new tips, tricks, techniques to help people get through their challenge. Human design's not one of the things that I use. And so I've interviewed a few people that have used human design before. I'll be honest, I don't fully understand how it works. So I asked Jackie if she would actually come on today and do a live reading on my personal human design. And so that's what we're going to do today. So, hey, Jackie, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Stacey. Thanks so much for having me again.
So excited. I was just saying to Jackie, this is being recorded in between Christmas and New Year's. So I'm very lucky that I showered. I'm not really sure what day it is. I didn't do my hair. So for those who are trolling on, YouTube or complaining about how I look, just take it for what it is. I don't even know what day it is. It's like that kind of week. But anyway, I'm so excited to have you do this reading. So I'm going to let you take it and share with us what human design is and why it's important.
Absolutely. So human design is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, the Hindu chakra system, as well as quantum physics. So when you're looking to get your chart read, very similar to getting your astrological chart read, you need the simple things like your date of birth, time of birth, city of birth. And that helps to gather the information. So when we look at this, what we learn is about your energetic blueprint. And it shows you not just who you're designed to be, but also who you kind of naturally are on one aspect. And then as you grow and change and become deconditioned based on what life has thrown your way, then you become even more aware of this other side of your design that's more in your subconscious.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll start with talking about the 5 key archetypes.
Okay.
Which are the manifestors. Now, the manifestors make up 9% of the population. And they are designed to initiate, right? That's what they do. So if you're thinking about it, I like to think about it sometimes in a corporate meeting, right? It's going to be the person who starts the meeting and says, hey, we're going to do this, guys. What do you think? And launches it. You have the generator family. Now, the generator family makes up about 70% of the population, but it's split into 2 categories, manifesting generators and generators. And both are designed to really master their craft. But the difference is that the manifesting generator is able to find the quickest and most efficient way possible to do that. Okay. So if you're in a meeting, then I would say the generators would say, oh, this is what we need to do to make this happen. And the manifesting generators would say, yeah, that's great. But you know what? I would even skip those 3 steps and try it this way so that we could do it even faster, right? Then you have the projectors. Now, the projectors make up 20% of the population, and they are your big vision people, right? So they will look at this and say, okay, guys, I think we are going to take this amazing project. It's going to be great. But you know what? It's actually going to be even bigger than we expected because it's going to fit into this macro strategy. And also, here's how all of our players internally can align perfectly within it. So they see all of that. And then there's the reflectors. The reflectors make up 1% of the population. And they are kind of the mirror of the environment. So if the vibe is good, they're energetic and they're feeling it. And if it's not, you're going to know because they're going to be a little bit off, right? So they help to really temperature check what's happening. So Stacey, you are a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
So
and can you tell people what you needed from me in order to get that information?
Sure. Yeah. So that what we needed, again, was your date of birth, time of birth, and city and location of birth.
Now, why are those things important?
So very similar with the astrological chart with human design, those points are also utilized to see where the planets align for you. And that helps with creating your chart and realizing.
And is that part of like the quantum physics piece of it? It's like understanding what was going on in the universe the moment you were born and where you were born within that plane?
Absolutely. And then the other piece of it is also looking at what was happening about 3 months prior.
And how does that impact? What is that about?
Yeah. So 3 months prior is when your design comes into play. So everything that we talk about being subconscious comes into play then. So it's like the starting of you, that development.
So interesting. Okay. So I saw on the report that I am a manifesting generator, which did not surprise me because I see that as like the person who knows how to get the shit done. It's like you kind of have the vision and you can see the path. And then you're, like you said, I believe that this other path could even be more prudent and even better and has the capabilities to just get all of that done.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is correct for me.
I love that. Okay. So the other thing to notice when you're looking at human design, we talk about your purpose, which we said, is to master, right? And how to master that efficiently. But then we're looking at what is your strategy. And so if you notice, it says your strategy is to respond.
Okay.
And what that means is when we're looking at the big decisions in life, how are we going about that? And it might sound passive, but it's actually not. So, Stacey, based on your belief systems, are there certain religious affiliates or are you more spiritual? Where would you say you?
I was not raised with a religion. And so I'm not religious because I don't know anything about religion, to be honest with you. But I am very drawn and have always been drawn since I was very young, since before I was 10, to Buddhism. No idea why. It had never been introduced to me, but I was very attracted and drawn to anything Buddhist anytime I saw it. And I just feel the more I then took time in my adult life to understand what Buddhism was and the philosophy behind Buddhism, it was me. So I don't know if that means I was Buddhist in another lifetime, but I'm just very drawn and naturally sync up with the principles of Buddhism. I don't practice it as a religion per se, but I live the philosophy of it in my day-to-day life, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So if I were to say, looking at, some people would call it God, some people would say universe, some people would say source. What aligns for you?
I would say like universe or source. Like I believe that there is a greater source and that the universe kind of always has a plan.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. All right. So with that in mind, the universe is always sending you signs and sending you things to respond to. So what makes generators and manifesting generators really special is your defined sacral. So there are 9 centers in the human design body graph. And similar to the new chakra system, the sacral is the kind of second from the bottom. And it is this power source. And it's a source of energy. So it's part of what gives you the energy to kind of go, and potentially work longer days or work till exhaustion or play till exhaustion. But it also is this amazing connection to your intuition. And it is an amazing connection to signs in the universe. So this is like a superpower. And so when we think about your strategy of responding, it also ties really well into your authority. And your authority, it says you have a sacral authority, right? So your authority is your decision-making strategy. So it is all about following your intuition. And in the generator family, it's really as simple as yes or no questions to activate it and to understand it. And, we hear this a lot. We see this a lot. Like a yes is a hell yes. A maybe is a no, right? There's no maybe. I think a maybe could be a not right now.
Right.
Right. Especially in your world as a manifesting generator, because things are moving so quickly for you. But it is a matter of continuing to tap back into that.
Now, I have a question while you're talking. So these things are fixed. Yes. Like they're based on, right. So if somebody has a design that is not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like if it's not allowing them to live optimally, is it because they're not living in conjunction with the design and they're living against what is? Because what you're describing is very much me. I don't know if I would have been able to say that at the age of 18 or at the age of 28 or at the age of 38, but I'll be 52 tomorrow, actually. At the age of 52, I've come into my own, right? We hear that saying, like, we come into our own, we get aligned with ourselves. And so the things that you're describing are me. Late in my 40s, I was like, I'm supposed to be coaching. It was an intuition. It was a whisper. It was a shoulder tap. It was a 2x4 over my head. Everywhere I turned, there were signs and indicators that I'm supposed to be coaching. I had been doing it my whole life, just as my nature. But I was like, I should monetize this. Like, I'm smart. I think I can make a business out of this. But that took a tremendous amount of courage and confidence. And I don't know if I would have been able to do that in my 20s, 30s, or early 40s even, right? I made that decision at 48. And I was like, and I said to my husband, I will have this up and running before I'm 50. And by the end of my 49th year, I did have it up and running, which is a lot of work to build a business from scratch.
Absolutely.
Right? In something that you have nobody thinks of you as that from a business perspective. Like they knew I was doing that, but they didn't. So I had no fear in creating that. Once I saw that that's what I needed to do, it wasn't even that I wanted to do it. I had to do it because that was a calling. I felt it so strongly. And then I just had to kind of lay out the plan and the pieces to get it done. But it was all 100% driven by intuition. It wasn't something I had gone to school for initially. It wasn't something that I saw other people doing. It was literally intuition. And when your intuition's a whisper, it's very hard to ignore it. And I probably had the whisper for a really, really long time. But when it got really loud and I couldn't ignore it because I was hearing it and seeing it and feeling it, the only way to quiet it was to do it. I don't know how else to say it.
Yes. Oh, I love it. That's a beautiful way to express that, because I think that whisper got louder and louder.
That's exactly right. And so my husband's like, where is this coming from? And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just, I'm literally hearing it. Like, it was my intuition. And I've always been deeply connected to it. And even when I'm with clients, I'm always good to prepare them when it's happening. If I'm listening to something that they're saying, I often hear something very different. And I'll say to them, I'm not ignoring you. I just have to write this down while you're talking. And I might put my head down and start writing. And then I'm still listening to them. And once they're done, I will repeat what they said to me so they know I heard it. And I'll say, given that you said all this, I need to tell you what I heard. Because I never knew that this was a term, but I just automatically used this language because it's how it was coming to me. I would say, I'm downloading information right now. And as I've gotten more friendly with more friends that are very intuitive, mediums, of that nature, they use that term download. And I was a little surprised because I thought I made that up. But I really just used the word that was the only word that could describe what I was experiencing, was a download of information that was coming to me that was not coming from within me. So often when I do that with a client, now I know, because the first few times I felt like they were going to think I was crazy. But when I did it, it was spot on. And they would say, how did you know that? Or how did you do that? Or where did you get that information from? So it gave me the courage to then listen to that intuition and trust it. And so now I'm very confident of it. And when it happens, I'll say to my client, okay, this is what I heard you say, but I need to tell you this is the other thing I was hearing. I kind of get these downloads, and just tell me if it resonates or if it doesn't. And I would say like 95% of the time, they're like, I don't know how you did that, but that's spot on. And how did you know that? Or 5 other people have said that to me, but I've never told you that. So how did you know that? And I'll always say, it's just from above. Like, it's not coming from here. I'm getting it from here. I'm literally pulling it down. And I think I've always had a strong sixth sense, and my grandmother had a strong sixth sense, and my mother has a strong sixth sense, but I never knew how to use it. But that intuition that you're talking about, that sacral energy, whenever I've done chakra readings or chakra clearings, that's the part that people are always telling me needs some more work, because I think it's always being worked. That's, when I'm not in my flow, it's because that is blocked. That and my crown chakra, both are the ones that are typically blocked, which I think are the ones that are bringing in a lot of that intuition, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, first of all, your gifts are extraordinary. And I love that. And I love that you listened and found that soothing when your intuition started to get louder and louder. And that's an amazing thing. And you're right. When we are in our younger years, we have so much noise that is coming at us. And actually, it's not necessarily always age dependent, right? If we haven't done a lot of our work, we have that noise, and life conditions us. So we're, sometimes it's even just being told we're one thing when we're growing up. And so we're expecting that we have to stay on this road to be this one thing. And you've been given this place of who you are and what you're told you are.
Yes.
And that could be entirely different from who you actually are.
Mm-hmm. So is that how you use these readings to help people find themselves again, basically?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because if we think about it, so the people that I work with are people that have been abused and they are living in that space of self-doubt. Well, your highest self, your design, is not you doubting yourself.
Right.
It's you coming with all of these incredible gifts, these beautiful strengths. But what you can also see is what happens when you're out of balance. And there are areas that self-doubt shows up when you're out of balance. So instead of making it part of you or beating yourself up for saying, I can't believe I'm doubting myself, which we do, right? You're doubting yourself and now you're angry at yourself for doubting yourself. Like it's this silly cycle. It's instead using it as like a marker, a sign, a recognition, like, oh, I'm out of balance. So what is it that's out of balance here? Is it that I said yes to something when I really meant no? Has a boundary been crossed? Do I need rest? Am I getting myself on this, verge of burnout?
It's so interesting as you talk about that, because I do a lot of what's called parts work with my clients. Mm-hmm. It's rooted in internal family systems. And there's this concept of you have yourself, right? That's connected to a higher source. It's the highest version of yourself that we're all born with. And it has has 8 innate qualities to it. Okay. Confidence, courage, clarity, an ability to connect. There's a centeredness about it. There's a compassion that comes with it for yourself. And it all generates from a sense of calm. Mm. And we're all born with it and we all start life with it. And then over time, we have experiences, things that we either experience or we observe that then pull us away from that self, and different parts of us are developed in order to navigate that part of life and to really keep us safe, right? Mm. And so I always tell my clients, just like you were saying, anytime you're not feeling one of these 8 qualities of self-leadership, where you know you're being self-led, you can consider it your flow, where you're in alignment with yourself. There are indicators. You feel anxious, you feel depressed, you feel out of sorts, but you're not calm and you're not connected and you're not feeling confident. That's an indicator there's a different part at play. It's almost like thinking that you were born driving your own bus, but now you're either in the driver's, passenger seat, the back seat, or even in the trunk. Like you're so far removed from it and another part's at play. How do we get reconnected back to self so self can be the leader? And we only call on these different parts if we really absolutely need them. Like if we're in real crisis, right? And leadership, self-leadership, maybe we need a little bit of extra support. So are you saying that in human design, we have our core human design? We're all born with this innateness, these innate qualities, but then over time we come out of alignment with that design. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is that usually based on life experiences that we're going through that create, crisis or stress that then cause us to have to almost kind of, I'm going to use this word carefully, abandon that original design or abandon self in order to navigate, but then it's kind of hard to find the path back by yourself sometimes. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So it's interesting how they kind of play off of each other, these two systems. I mean, I see it. These things are all universal, right? You said it's the chi, it's the chakra. It's like they all are rooted in some sort of similar philosophy.
I absolutely agree. I utilize with my clients human design and positive intelligence, and they almost seem counterintuitive. If you were to think about it, because human design feels very spiritual, although it is science-backed, and positive intelligence is very science-backed. Well, they all come from a place of self-love.
Yeah.
And
which is what this one is that it's self-connectedness,
yes,
right?
exactly. So how do we get back to that?
Amen.
And, one of the things that I think is really interesting as I looked at your chart, is looking at what grounds you. So when you look at your chart, you can see, when you get a reading, you can see a little bit deeper into those spaces. So the earth shows what grounds you. So where those gates are on the earth are what grounds you. And for you, hearing about your business, it just made so much sense to me, because you have the gate 52, which is perspective. And it is all about this bigger purpose and understanding where to focus your energy and kind of seeing what's unfolding.
I want to just stop right there and let people know that in my teenage years, I did not have that, right? In my 20s, I did not have that. I started gaining that in my very late 30s. I can vividly remember being up against a massive hurdle, as we all do, come up against hurdles all the time. And I had such a sensitive nervous system. I was so easily dysregulated based on my prior experiences. I owned a business with my family, which in general, in and of itself, when you're part of a family business, it's very stressful. So a lot of family dynamics at play. And there was a situation where I felt very overwhelmed. I felt very dysregulated. I could not really think, couldn't really concentrate. So I got up and left my desk and I went outside. And I took a deep breath, and the perspective that I had, and it was the first time I ever had it, and I've literally never forgotten it, was, this is not what I think it is. This is not as big as I think it is. All this is a problem, and all problems have a solution. This one has a solution. And as soon as I started talking to myself this way, I could feel my entire nervous system settle and melt and be like, oh, okay, we don't have to brace ourselves. It's not going to be a crisis again. And I had this clear perspective in that moment. And I've always remembered that. So I know it was a moment where everything shifted, right? So maybe I was becoming more in alignment with that design, but everything started to shift. And ever since then, I've always looked at every single massive challenge, and I've had incredible amounts of challenge in this short lifetime of mine. I've always seen it as an opportunity. What is it I'm supposed to learn here? What is it? It's a perspective. And even when we've had our own challenges, internally within my own family, because I am a coach and I do hear so many different stories and narratives, and I never share them, but I will always say to my husband, I have a different perspective on this particular problem, because I hear about this particular problem all the time. And I'm telling you, this could be a worse situation, or that could be different, or this could be different. And it always, to your point, grounds me. It's I look at life through a drone. And I literally just see whatever's going on in my own space as a speck of sand on this massive beach of the universe or the world or whatever. So I tend not to react. To your point, I tend to respond, because I do have this wider perspective. But it's important for people to know I was born with it, but I did not navigate life like that in my teens, 20s, and early 30s. It wasn't that I was always able to do that. I surrendered. That's why I was able to do that. Because when you surrender to what is happening and you don't fight what is happening, and you just see it as, I could sit here and fight it all day long, but the truth is it's happening. So now I have to decide, what do I want to do with that situation? What kind of control do I have within it? What do I not have? And what am I supposed to learn from it?
Stacey, that's beautiful. That moment that you had, that just speaks to my soul. And I imagine anyone listening feels that same way. It's this incredible turning point. And it's that real life moment of what we go through. And, when we talk about these pieces of your design, I talked about what happens when you're out of balance. And when you're out of balance, it's being overwhelmed. It's letting that paralyze you, or it's focusing in different areas that aren't bearing any fruit. It isn't.
Which is my point. Like, I lived a paralyzed life for a very, very long time. I lived in a state of anxiety and paralysis from that anxiety for decades. That's why I'm trying to let people know, like, it might be part of my innate design, but I didn't always live my life by that design.
Exactly.
And it wasn't until my late 30s and my early 40s where like real shakeup happened. And I really did have like a nervous breakdown in order to shift and have to recognize some of these lessons that I now, use as part of the principles of my practice. But it wasn't always that way. And I think it's important for people to know that, because they look at people that are coaches or healers in the mental health space and they just kind of assume that you've always had the gift. I always had the gift. I didn't always use it.
100%. Thank you so much for that. And, the other piece of it for you, because we have your conscious gifts and your subconscious ones that are part of your design. And that subconscious one for you that grounds you is anticipation. And actually,
so what does that mean?
So that's actually being able to explore bigger possibilities. And it's stretching our ideas of what's even possible. So what I think about is that moment of you hearing that whisper and the perspective and anticipation, the only way to ground them, like they were giving you those grounding tools. That intuition was telling you, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And it literally settled it.
Yeah. I remember having a very serious talk with a friend of mine because I heard this messaging for a very long time, like maybe a year or two. And I was like kind of trying to ignore it because it didn't fit into what I was doing. It didn't fit into the life I had built. And I just knew once I spoke it out loud, there was like no turning back. So I held it for a long time. And then I went on a walk with a friend and I said, listen, I've been investigating this concept and this idea, and I'm really not sure how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And I'm going to do this. And it, that's again, another moment where like I harnessed that courage and that confidence to say, there's really no other option here. Like I'm going to do this. And it was never, once I knew I was going to do it, there was no doubt in my mind that it wasn't going to succeed. There was no doubt in my mind that, it wasn't what I had to do or what I needed to do. There was no part of me that was like, well, what if this doesn't work? So I knew because of that it's really becoming in alignment with your purpose. But remembering, guys, I really didn't open my doors until January of 2021 officially. So it'll be 3 years in January, which like next week, but I'm turning 52 tomorrow. So I was 49 years old when I made this decision. So let's just call it close to 50. And I'm like, hey, I get this thing up and running. I could be doing this for like another 25 years. Like, this is not too late. This is like really just the right time. I have enough wisdom, enough grounding, enough confidence, enough life experience that this is how I'm supposed to utilize all of that.
And that's so absolutely beautiful. And how lucky are all of we that you found your way there.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. It's for sure. And I don't think I could have gotten to this without having experienced what I experienced, say from 10 until, 30.
Mm.
Couldn't have done it. I wouldn't know what I know. I just wouldn't.
Right. One thing I want to highlight and go back to is really this tapping into your authority, your sacral authority when you're making decisions. So we mentioned the fact that you've experienced getting those signs of what could be next for you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the beautiful things about being a part of the generator family is that you get signs all the time for everything. So you can use that response tool in everything that you do. And also remembering, which I know you know very well, but for your listeners out there, that it's okay to get the signs and say no.
Yeah.
Right? Because just because they're there doesn't mean it's a yes. Just because you see them. That's where you see the signs, but then you tap in to your intuition and you ask that yes or no question. And it could be as simple as, is this for me?
Mm.
And you'll know. And it's an immediate, right? And if there's any pause or delay, not right now. Or maybe try a different way. So some of the times what I like to tell people when I've done readings is you can write down a list of questions, yes or no questions that you want to ask yourself, or you can go to somebody you trust and have them ask you. And you just quick yes or no, get your responses out. We call it a sacral session. So that's something special that I do with my clients as well when they're stuck, is to go through this with them. And it works only on generators and manifesting generators.
Oh, it's so interesting.
But getting into that yes or no, it brings your intuition back to life. It's kind of like charging that sacral. Like if it's been blocked, that'll help to unblock, right?
So interesting.
Gets you tapped back in.
Mm-hmm. What are the things that people should know, either as to why they should consider getting a reading and how it could impact their life if they're stuck in life?
Yeah. So I would get a reading because it shows you a way to love yourself more, a way to make decisions that might be counterintuitive to how you're currently doing it. And when you are able to follow your strategy and your authority, it means that your decisions, you become more confident in them, and it helps to put you in a path that is meant for you, that makes more sense. I'll tell you a quick story if you have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I am a projector with an emotional authority. So what that means is that my strategy is to wait to be invited and to be recognized. And my authority, being emotional, means I ride an emotional wave. So I need at least 24 hours to make a decision when it comes to big decisions. Well, I had signed with a client, and just as we were figuring out these negotiations, it was like back and forth. They wanted more. They wanted to take, kind of away from what I was asking for. And it was starting to not feel good. But then I kept wavering back and forth saying, I know I liked what they were doing in the beginning, and maybe this is a temporary, how this is going. Maybe I just need to get in there and figure it out. I don't know. I guess I could. And back and forth, I was just having all of this experience. And I ended up choosing this particular client contract at the time. And the entire relationship was like this, up and down. I was burnt out. I was being worked like I was a generator when I'm not. I was working 80 hours a week for something that was not contracted for that. And it practically, destroyed me physically, emotionally. And then I learned, wait, I didn't respond and choose in the right way. Yes, I was invited, sure, but that
So you weren't
emotional
listening
wave,
to your intuition.
yeah. I kept saying, oh, no, it's okay. It'll be fine.
And why do you think you were saying that to yourself?
I think I was likely coming from a place of lack. I think I was so used to fitting into what other people needed. And that was something that needed to be deconditioned too.
I love that. And I think that's kind of what I've been trying to get at. Like, you know, as we've been talking, I've been literally running through my head, like different clients that sit on my couch or that I meet through Zoom, and, you know, where they're struggling and where they're stuck, and how does that align with or not align with their own human design, right? And what I can see is so much of it is fighting what is happening and negotiating, like you said, within the realm of the chaos of what's happening. Much of with because it was programmed that way. Like, let me just see if I can fix this, or if I don't fix this, it feels like a failure, and then people are going to think X, and like and we get so distracted by the what ifs and the noise, and we don't stay centered and grounded and connected to and be in alignment with the voice within. Right? So like more of a whisper, like we talked about earlier. Very, very interesting. This has been fascinating. And I want people to know that this is something that you do for people all the time. So can you share with the listeners, if they're curious about their own human design, you know, what their first steps could be and how they could get in touch with you?
Sure. So on my website, inspiredjourneyconsulting.com, there's an offers page, and you'll see human design on there. It'll actually take you to either schedule a reading or to even just watch a video to get an understanding of what we're talking about here and some of the benefits. So I would say those are your best bets. I offer readings either, singular. I always recommend doing 2 because then we can get really deep in. Or even I have a package of 6. So whether or not you want to split that between you and someone else, do a team, do a family. And then I also integrate it into my coaching.
I love it. And guys, all of the links for that will be in the show notes. You don't have to be feverishly writing down the URL. So thank you so much. This has been fascinating. I've really learned so much about myself and why I am where I am at this point in my life. And just again, reminding people it's all about the journey, and, it's about realigning back to the original blueprint, right? And I use that terminology a lot, actually, with my clients. It's getting back to self. It's going back and picking up all of the breadcrumbs along the way of the pieces of yourself that you've left behind, so you can be more in alignment with what the universe has in store for you. So thank you so much. This has been great. I very much appreciate you coming on and doing this with us today.
Absolutely. I'm honored. Thank you.
All right, guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, you're definitely going to want to hear Jackie's story, because it's pretty incredible and pretty intense all at the same time. And she's a wonderful speaker. So it really was such an eloquent interview. The link to that is going to be in the show notes. And if you like this, and if you like the original interview with Jackie, you're going to want to subscribe so you are notified whenever a new podcast drops, because we drop one every single Monday. So until then, thanks so much for tuning in.